Welcome back to Midnight Movie Club and my review of The Reckoning. The Reckoning was directed by Neil Marshall, who also co-wrote the film alongside Charlotte Kirk, who stars, and Edward Swindle. The film follows Grace, a woman whose husband has recently died to the plague. As she tries to cope and tend to the land and pay her rent, things start to get even worse for her, as the village folk start to suspect that she may well be a witch, since her husband succumbed to the plague, but her and her newborn child haven't. They think supernatural presences are afoot and helping her to dodge this affliction and be all round witchy. It really shows a lot of paranoia within the community, and that was one of the, sadly, few things I liked about this movie. First up, let's talk about the acting. Charlotte Kirk stars as Grace, the lead protagonist, and she is very stiff and wooden. In fact, probably more stiff and wooden than the torture racks that she is put on. She really brought no depth of emotion to this. It's meant to feel like a real grind. You're meant to feel her struggle. It's meant to be a grueling, enduring process that she goes through, but you just don't feel that at all, and it's partly down to her acting, partly down to the editing and the overall makeup of the film. Charlotte Kirk just seemed more interested in showing off her arse than actually putting in a decent performance. And that's really sad for me to say, because I had very, very high hopes for this movie. Now, I won't try to go on and just trash it. As you all know, I have a bias towards Neil Marshall. Dog Soldiers was one of my favourite films ever, if not my favourite film ever. I love The Descent. I love Centurion. Doomsday is awesome for what it is, a B-movie love letter to movies like Escape from New York and Mad Max. The guy's done my favourite episodes of Game of Thrones. I'm a big fan, so if anyone was going to be biased and cut this movie slack, it would have been me. But honestly, I can't defend him with this one. The Reckoning, it's a stinker. Off the bat, I thought it had potential, but we do get this opening scroll with text over the screen, and that's never really a good sign. But here I thought I could let it slip, since it's given us some information about the plague and some statistics, which are slightly inaccurate, I believe. I'm not 100% sure. If you know, let me know in the comments down below. But while this text is going over the screen, we actually do get a very cool, harrowing shot, which I really hoped for more of throughout this film. You know, this sense of how many people were dying on the streets, bodies piled up everywhere, rats everywhere. I thought they were really going to bring that across, and with this opening shot, it looked like they were going to achieve that. But sadly, this was the coolest shot of the film, and from there on out, it just stays the same, and bland is the only word I can really give it. Makeup and costume design, I really need to talk about this, as this is being tagged as like some sort of drama period piece. Look, it's not, because the makeup and the costume design is nowhere near good enough to be considered a period piece. Grace, the protagonist's makeup throughout the film is perfect. Her teeth are completely white, whiter than anyone else's. Her eyebrows have been waxed, plucked, whatever. She's got makeup on constantly. And the same goes for everyone. There's maybe like 2 characters who actually look like they fit in this period. Everyone else, well groomed, trimmed beards and all that. It doesn't come across as believable. In the costume design, it just looks like it was taken from like a primary 6 play or something like that. It looks like they've just raided the school closets for costumes that they've been given to the kids. And I don't know what they could have done. They could have maybe chucked them in a bath with some tea bags or something, dirtied them up, made them look like more of that era. But everything's too pristine and clean, and it just pissed me off. Like, it just didn't look the period that it was in. And when it's being tagged as some dramatic period piece, that shit needs to be on point. And look, if it went full horror, really into the supernatural stuff and was crazy, I could let that stuff slide. But I think it was actually trying to take itself extremely serious and try be this crazy dramatic period piece about women empowerment, beating misogyny and all that, which it could have worked. I feel like there was potential for something there, but by God did they squander it. And there's actually one character I want to bring up. He's a side character, he maybe has like a handful of lines. What the fuck was going on with his voice? If you've seen the film, you'll know what I'm talking about. What was he doing? Like, if they're going for this like serious tone, then he was completely out of left field. His voice was ridiculous, and I hope he was putting it on, because if that's how he talks to his wife and kids, man, I feel sorry for them. Like, I don't like to be like this, but when a movie really feels like it's wasted my time and disappoints me, I've got to be harsh on it. I've got to be critical. I try to be as positive as I can and find the good in every movie I watch, even if I don't enjoy it. But this was tough. This was a slug to get through. And it was little things like that just made me sit back and laugh. And I was like, I'm not meant to be laughing at this movie. The tones were all over the place. The first act as well, the first 10 minutes you don't need to watch, right? You could walk into this movie at 20 minutes and you'd be fine. The first act, the way it is edited, is just so choppy and all over the place. They go for this weird non-linear kind of first act thing, and it just makes no sense, and it really takes away from any emotional connection. If they just played it out in a linear fashion, gave us a moment to actually get to know the characters before the bad shit starts happening to them, we might have given a shit. But the way it's edited and the performances and everything as well, I just couldn't give two shits, honestly. There's also like pointless exposition. Like, I'm pretty sure at one point a character literally says, "Oh, hi, you, yeah, how are you doing? I'm so-and-so, we've been friends forever, we're like sisters." And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Honestly, surely that's not Neil Marshall's writing. There is dialogue later on in the film. The best dialogue of the film is between these two jailers, and that's where I hear Neil Marshall's voice, and I'm like, okay, he definitely wrote that. Surely he's not wrote that shit. It was so fucking on the nose, so bad. Just exposition dumps about who people are and how they've known each other. It's like, no, do not do that. Do not treat me like a child. Do not explain things like that to me. Hi, how you doing would have sufficed, and I would have gathered that they've been friends for a while. Just tell me they're neighbours or something like that. Oh, it's just dross like that actually really pissed me off during this film. But the movie does have a silver lining. We do have Sean Petrae, and honestly, he's the only captivating performance in the whole film. He steals the show with every scene he's in, even though he's given hardly anything to work with. Just his voice and his presence, he's the best thing about the film, but sadly he's just not enough to get it over the line and make it a decent watch. For the dialogue that he's got to work with is pretty piss poor, but the back and forth between him and Grace was probably the best parts of the movie. But when he's playing across from Charlotte Kirk, who's just, I don't know, it came across as just a bit cheesy and forced, and like I said before, stiff. It just doesn't work. It doesn't mesh, and like, it doesn't matter how well he delivers his lines. Like, it's just always gonna fall flat. Sadly, there's also one scene that it's like a domestic between a couple, and it's just so funny. Like, I don't think it was meant to be funny, but I was pissing myself at the scene's conclusion. There is some cool practical effects while we're on that as well. But the practical effects, even though they're really good, the practical effects are really good. I'll have to give this film that. Once again, Neil Marshall working with practical effects always kills it. There was just no need for them. It was just like totally out of the blue. Like, that's just why is that just happened? Like, and it's ridiculous. If you know what scene I'm talking about, I don't want to spoil it. And as I say, all my reviews are always spoiler free. But yeah, a domestic turns into something ridiculous, really, and like, it's cool to see the effects, but when you see it in that context, you just kind of laugh again, and you're like, why is this being used here? And this just seems pointless. Yeah, that's about it, really. The film also has this kind of inconsistent grade, with the day shots being pure oversaturated and colourful, and sometimes I felt overexposed, to then contrast with the doom and gloom of the nights. The night shots were really nice. We had some really nice establishing shots, real nice shots of the town, you know, bodies hanging, all that kind of gothic architecture, and they should have kept everything at night. This movie should have been completely shot at night, because during the day, the costumes, the makeup, the set design all look shit and cheap. They should have shot this completely at night. They obviously didn't have, like, you know, the Game of Thrones level budget to make the day shots look good, so just shoot it all at night, hide all the crap in shadows, because the night stuff did look really nice. The second act, once we get into the thick of it and shit actually starts to happen, it's actually okay. It gets a little bit better. There's promise there. The supernatural element starts kicking in. Psychological element starts kicking in. You're like, yes, this could actually go somewhere. And about halfway through that second act, it falls flat again. And it just kind of trundles over the line to a predictable, just kind of meh climax in the end. It's not satisfying in any way. You kind of see it coming. And yeah, there was just nothing to really keep you on the edge of your seat going into the final minutes of this one. The film just had really weird pacing at points. It would just be very repetitive. Grace is in her cell. Grace is going to a trial, but we don't see anything. Grace goes back to her cell. Grace goes back to another trial, but we don't see anything. She's back in her cell. Is she asleep? Is she awake? Who knows? And it's just like, when do I start caring? When do you stop caring? Because at some point you're just like, well, I don't know if any of this is really happening. I don't know if that's just happening. I don't know if that's just happening. I don't know if she spoke to that person or not. Why should I give a shit? Like, it just, yeah. And it's not confusing or anything like that. It's just, you're just like, why do I care? Because I know the same thing's just about to happen. They're going to build up this cool kind of trial, and it's just going to skip over it, and we're going to be back in this cell for another dream sequence. It just gets really repetitive and bogs the movie down. One thing I did actually like about the film, along with Sean Petrae and the practical effects of like the creature design, that was definitely the best part. There is a practical effect kill, but like I said, in context it's ridiculous. Was the score by Christopher Drake. Very good score, very haunting, kind of Conjuring-esque, that's not how you pronounce that, Conjuring-esque. And at some points it actually sounded very John Carpenter, almost like The Fog. It sounded like he took inspiration from The Fog. I love that, so praise the score. Always, as always, praise Sean Petrae and some of the practical effects. But that is all I can really say about this one. Not much to go into detail for. I probably could do a spoiler rant about this one, about all the crazy little stupid things that go on, but I don't think I want to waste my breath on it. Really disappointed with this one. Just really disappointed with this one. I think that's why I'm so pissed off. It's probably one of my angriest reviews since Halloween 2018. So I'm going to give this one a 1 out of 5 rating, and it's a 0.5 for Petrae and a 0.5 for the score. It's getting a 1 out of 5. We'll never watch this again. Will not recommend it to anyone. Sadly, I really wanted to enjoy this. As I said before, I'm a huge Neil Marshall fanboy. Do I want to see what he's got to come after this? Yes, I'm excited for The Lair. It sounds far more horror focused, and I think that's what he needs to get back to. Horror and action. That's what he's good at directing. Here, there just wasn't enough of either. It was just boring. So yeah, 1 out of 5 for this one, sadly. Hopefully Neil Marshall comes back stronger than ever with The Lair and maybe a Dog Soldiers sequel. Who knows? But yeah, let me know what you made of The Reckoning in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed this review, please do give it a like. And if you haven't already, then subscribe to join the club. As always, thank you very much for watching, and good night.